Good afternoon and welcome to our very special experience, Wedding Extravaganza 21 Wedding Planning Workshops. Today, we're going to do some marriage prep and Ask the Officiant, Reverend Greg. Welcome, everyone. If you were with us this morning, welcome back. And if it's your first time on today, welcome. My name is Nancy Campana, and I'm the owner of Nouveau Event Planning. We normally produce the wedding shows at the Caboto Club in September and January. But of course, just like you, our events have changed this year. And we are online doing virtual wedding planning workshops, as well as getting gift bags into your hands. So we're hoping you're enjoying that gift bag. We want to make sure that you go to weddingshows.com often and shop online with us. On our shop online directory, we are now the largest regional vendor directory for wedding businesses. Many of those businesses have Wedding Show Windsor specials online on our shop online page, and we are adding more and more vendors to that directory every week, so check back often. Also check out our loyalty page. Anyone that books with our loyalty vendors, you can collect your receipts and turn them into us when you get married. The rules and guidelines are up on the loyalty page, and there's 3 different gifts depending on the level of spend that you can earn. We'll be sending you 1 gift if you send in your receipts to us from loyalty vendors. Today, I am welcoming Reverend Greg Gurniak. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
And Greg, you are a wedding officiant and also a communication counselor. And today we're going to discuss how to prepare for a successful long-term marriage through effective communication. And reciting the for good and for bad in sickness and in health is the easy part, really, of getting married. But from there, we're preparing for a long-term life relationship with someone. You'll also expand on talking about what a ceremony looks like. So our Ask the Officiant questions will help these couples prepare for the actual ceremony. Many couples are excited about that reception, but there's prep that has to be done for the ceremony as well. So welcome, Greg. I want to let everyone know as well that after I address questions to Greg, we will open up the chat and you'll be able to ask your questions as well. And I'd also like to thank Anything and Everything and Sweet Revenge Bake Shop who provided my backdrop today. So Greg, we are in the red zone. The last time we were in the gray zone. So we've moved up a step.
Woohoo!
And the next step is the next bigger one that I know a lot of couples who are preparing 2021 weddings are waiting to get that go ahead signal. I'd like to tell everyone I'm getting my vaccine this week. So they are rolling them out faster. And hopefully, by late spring and early summer, we're going to see the opening up to 50 and 100. But let's talk about the ceremony. If someone wants to get married today within the red category, just that ceremony part, the tying of the knot, what does that look like for guest numbers, Greg?
So it's, like you said, just the ceremony itself is 30% of the capacity of the venue where it's at.
Right. So it would be 30% and I believe that has to be at a religious facility. Am I correct in saying that? I had checked that with the health.
Yes.
So it has to be within a religious setting to have that 30% capacity. If not, you could do an outdoor ceremony with 25 people. And then this is where there's a lot of confusion because the reception is different. You can only sit down with 5 people and they have to be within your family to eat and have a reception after that ceremony. So if you have 30% capacity at a church, you can only invite 5 people to sit down with you and celebrate after. Once we open up, we're going to that 50 and 100, 50 indoors, 100 outdoors. So, that changes a lot for a lot of couples. So thank you for clarifying that today.
You're welcome.
So Greg, I'm going to go back to a few questions that we didn't get answered last time because you were a popular guy and a lot of people had a lot of questions. One of them that we didn't get to last time would be, would an officiant stay and say prayers before dinner and of course stay for the reception normally if they're invited?
Sure. As long as the couple speaks to the officiant in advance, proper arrangements can be made. I don't see there being any kind of an issue. I know I don't have an issue with that. The only kink that can happen is that if the officiant is doing more than one wedding and
Right.
yours is an earlier time slot, like if you were at the 1 o'clock time slot, but you wanted prayers at the dinner at 6, well, the officiant likely will have to leave, go do another ceremony, and then come back.
Right.
Um, so it might have to look like that, but yeah,
Yeah, so I
I
was
don't have a
gonna say those
problem.
are probably, if you want those prayers or blessings done at the actual dinner, those are probably arrangements you should make early, like you say with your officiant, because I know many officiants are really booking up for the coming
Yes,
season, or they're going to book up, once those couples get that go ahead, they're going to get a lot of last minute calls. So it's something that you probably want to discuss right from the onset with your officiant
right.
if you do want them at your ceremony, and your reception for some prayers. So different ceremonial procedures can really be the highlight of a wedding ceremony. Can you explain a unity ribbon and what that looks like?
Sure. And often it's also called hand fasting. Way back, when it was first sort of started many years ago, these hand fasting ceremonies are conducted using either ribbons or cords, and these ribbons or cords can be different colors or different textures, and each one may have a special meaning to the couple. So the couple would join hands, and then as the officiant reads a series of vows, the ribbons or these cords are wrapped around the couple's hands, and then the officiant, after we're finished with all of them, the officiant will make some additional type of statement about completion of the binding and how it's symbolic to their commitment. And it's also where the phrase tying the knot comes from.
Oh, well, that all makes sense. I love
Now
that
it makes
idea,
sense,
by the
right?
way.
Yeah.
I really love that idea.
Yeah.
Um, we had discussed in our last workshops, someone had asked about what they could give or how they could incorporate a bonus daughter in a second marriage. So, what they could give them for some gift ideas, to make them feel included in the unification of the family. And then we had someone towards the end, and we couldn't get to the question, ask, I have a bonus, I'm going to have a bonus son. How can I welcome them into either the ceremony or the family or with a gift? And you have some suggestions for that today.
I do. So it depends on what the bonus son is interested in. So I've got a whole bunch of ideas. So you could do a customized chef's apron for them. You could do sunglasses. You could have monogrammed suspenders to match all the groomsmen. You could do a monogrammed wooden yo-yo, or a monogrammed ID bracelet, or an engraved watch, or something a little off the beaten path might be 10 shares of stock to their favorite company of their
Oh,
video game or car manufacturer, maybe Disney or something of that nature.
that's a great idea. And that's something that could grow like your love, right? Over the years. You could,
That's right.
yes, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Um, Preparing for a marriage has to include a lot more than just planning for a wedding. And I know, once that ring goes on the fingers, couple get very excited to plan for
Mhm.
that day. But I think a lot of couples through this year have realized that there's a lot more to planning a wedding than the fun stuff, because they've had to work through a lot of complications if they had to postpone a wedding in 2020. So there's a lot of emotional stress that comes with the process. Can you
Mhm.
talk to us about the best ways to communicate through the wedding planning process? Because we know there's also family dynamics that can get involved, um, girlfriends' opinions, friends' equipments, grandma's opinion. So, you know, there's a lot of there is a lot of stress that sometimes, not always, but sometimes can be involved for couples. How do we start with communicating effectively right from day one of engagement?
Okay. So in the couple, um, I would suggest that everybody knows what your communication style is with the dynamics within the couple. So who's the talker? Who's the one that's interested in all the details? So you can reduce a lot of stress just by talking about your expectations for the day, for what you envision. Often you hear brides say, "Oh, ever since I was a little girl, I wanted this," and sometimes the guys too. "Oh, I always thought my wedding day would be like this," or "We would get married here, in a park," or something of that nature. So if you're not sharing that and communicating that with your partner, then you're just causing more tension. And then add that we've got a pandemic on top of the mix, and it's just making it more difficult. So you should also be interested in paying attention to make compromising and goal resolution uh, part of that dynamic that you set up, so that you can each you can set some clear boundaries, and that each party can then say, so that no one gets hurt. I mean, if you set this up sort of at the very beginning and you say, "Okay, look, let's have sort of say our piece, so to speak," whether you want something or don't want something, and that can set up a better dynamic right from the get-go. The other thing is that you should remove any kind of distractions. So don't be flipping through a magazine when there's an important discussion to be happening, or watching a sporting event or anything of that nature. And just keep checking in periodically with each other to see how you're feeling, and just remember why you're planning a wedding.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you said start with those questions from the beginning. Each partner sit down with no distractions, put the phones away, right? Turn off the TV, and
Right.
have a dinner over talking about, we're engaged. So how many people were you thinking? And how many people were you thinking? Those might be two very different, right? Answers
Could
right
be.
at the beginning. And
Yeah.
were you thinking an indoor outdoor wedding, or were you thinking a venue? And even the venue, like what venue? Even just to get those simple beginning questions out. And you might find that you're right on the same page from the beginning, or you're polar opposite, and you're going to need to start with that communication and compromise process to come to a midpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If communication is a weakness in a couple's relationship, and this is an issue, how would you recommend couples best resolve this issue before taking the leap into marriage? So, if communication has
Wow.
been an issue, right, in their
Yeah.
relationship, what would you suggest for a couple to do to get on a better road to communication? Because that's really the start of a long-term successful marriage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one way is to actually explore what both parties think about their emotions. So, how did you process emotions when you were a child? And do does each person actually believe that the way they process those emotions, were they helpful? It sort of sets your core belief system up that way. So then you both know, "Oh, well, this person's coming from this angle and this person's coming from this angle." So keeping those kind of facts in mind as you go through this whole process of planning a wedding, you can explore together how to communicate with each other more effectively at that point. Maybe that's being more willing to look at different solutions, or being able to compromise, or maybe you skip over some of those feelings and just sort of go with the flow because you need to, because of the pandemic or what have you. Um, the other thing is that you would want to address any past or painful hurts that may have happened in that relationship that perhaps aren't fully resolved. Um, Sometimes there's something left over even from childhood that they still might, or they might still feel hurt by something the partner said or did. So, and each person might have a different idea of what that means, and what communication means in a relationship as well. So, to that quiet person that might be perceived as a weakness, that might be their personal culture, I would say, as to what they believe the communication should be like in a relationship.
Right. Yeah, and I think, different personalities come with different communication methods. Some people are more
Right.
confrontational and want to get it out on the table and get it done now,
Yes.
whereas other people avoid confrontation and need that time, maybe 24 hours before they can process it, sit on it, and then sit down and talk about it. And as long as you know how you process confrontation between the two of you and can once again respect, okay, I know you want to get this done right now, but give me a couple hours. I need to process this. As long as you know what
Yeah,
each other's style is when it comes to confrontation, I think that's helpful as well.
absolutely. And do the best to avoid anger or any kind of outbursts or hurtful kind of speech, because that way, I mean, you're just, if you react, sort of temper your reaction to certain things if you can, as best you can. Um, because if you're angry, sometimes something hurtful is said, or because you haven't had that, if you're one of those people that wants to think
Mhm.
and you haven't had that time to think, and the other person is sort of just right at you, hammering at you, and they're not realizing that there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, hang on a second, I've heard you,
Yes.
you know and then just say, I need time to think. So there's nothing wrong with stopping someone and saying, okay, I get it, I
Yeah.
understand, but I need to think.
Right.
I need a little time to process. Give me either a few hours, or give me till dinner time, or
Yeah.
let's talk again tomorrow or something. Yeah.
What are some of the simplest exercises that couples can work on to improve their communication techniques with each other?
Well, one good thing is to pay very close attention to your partner's body language. If you see them sort of retreating and cringing, then it's one thing. If they're open and listening, then that's another thing. And I would encourage everybody to listen attentively when your partner speaks. Put those distractions away, like we've already talked about, cell phone, TV, what have you, because even if you can multitask, and I know people say they can, but truly it's difficult to do that. That if you're listening to your partner and at least paying attention to what they're saying, and you're not got your head buried in the phone, or kind of side-eyeing the television set, and the score of the game or something like that, then or the news or whatever's on, you can get a lot, you garner a little bit more respect from your partner, and you can get a lot more accomplished that way without confrontation. And you might want to even take 15 minutes every day just to sit down and talk to your partner about how their day was. And even that is helpful.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be about the wedding. It can be about, well, how was your day? If wedding planning comes up, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, once you have kids, the communication between partners becomes even more difficult to find that time. A lot of times, that time might be at dinner time when you sit down together, but then the kids have
Yeah.
lots to say then as well. And,
True.
you might be telling a story to each other and it's interrupted 10 times and you never get that story out. So I think one of the beautiful
Yeah.
things about the pandemic is how much I'm seeing couples walking together.
Yes.
Maybe make that a part of your communication routine that you're going to go out for a 15-minute walk every day, around the block
Yeah.
a couple times, whatever, just to get away from it all. Have you and I know at some one point in our marriage, we got a hot tub and that's where we would meet at night for 10 or 15 minutes. And that's where we caught up after the kids were in bed.
Yeah.
So just
Nice.
find that place where, like you say, there is no distractions and try to check in every day because right now life has slowed down a lot for many of us, not for everyone. If you're a healthcare worker or
Right.
teacher, your life's gone crazy. And
Yes.
just trying to find 15 minutes out of your day to connect and talk at each other or talk to each other, not at each other, I think is a really important thing.
Yeah, and no matter, even if you are a healthcare worker and your life has gotten crazy and you're still trying to plan a wedding, and oh my goodness, all of that still doesn't matter whether it's slowed down or crazy. Still take that time for yourself and also to communicate with your partner.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a best approach when one person within the relationship has something extremely sensitive to discuss with their partner? Is there a good approach to take, Greg?
Um, yeah. It's important. Well, we've already talked a little bit about listening, so it's important to listen. It's also important to remain calm. Whichever person is coming to the other with the issue, whatever that issue may be, if it's a sensitive issue, they're going to be nervous and scared to approach you anyway. So, have a little bit of compassion for how scared they are as well. Um, but consider how, if you're the person bringing that up, you want to consider a couple of things. An appropriate time and place is one thing, and another would be is how you begin this conversation. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that there's something sensitive, that this topic that you want to discuss is of a sensitive nature. I'd avoid coming up to your partner saying, "Can we talk?"
Mhm.
or "We have to talk." You know, that never starts off well. So I'd avoid that. The other thing is that if it is of a very sensitive nature, one might consider writing down some of the points. And you can even say that to your partner, that I wrote down points so that I could help me stay focused, so that I could explain either how I'm feeling or what my point of view on this situation is.
That's great
And then
advice.
remember,
Yeah.
give them time to respond.
So we're
They
gonna
may need some time.
that's great advice. We've opened up the chat, so if you want to ask your questions now, I'm going to ask Greg one more question, then we're going to move on to the chat. Back to getting married. How far in advance should a couple start working with an officiant, Greg?
I would say that as soon as you've decided, if you're having a, a reception, whenever you book the venue, or even if you're having, you want to have your ceremony at a different place, rather than a large hall or something of that. I would say that as soon as you book that, the next call you should be making is to an officiant,
Yeah.
and then think about getting the bridal dress and everything else. I know that they often say the second thing is the dress, that you should be looking at, but really, the way officiants are booking, normally I would say you should be looking at getting an officiant booked at least 9 months to a year, uh, at the very least. And under this current situation that we're in, I'd probably start thinking about it about a year and a half
Yeah.
in advance. Now, that's not to say that dates aren't available. It's
Right.
just that if you want the officiant at a particular time, they may be doing 3 or more weddings in one day. And, if you really want that 1 o'clock time slot, they might not have it available on that date.
Yeah. It's
So,
really it's hard to plan your itinerary for the day until you have your officiant in place, because that's the person marrying you, right? So
well, yeah, otherwise you're just having a party.
yeah, yeah.
You're having a very expensive party because there's nothing legal about it. So, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start our questions off. Please feel free to ask whatever you'd like about your actual wedding ceremony. There's some legalities involved in wedding ceremonies as well, so we can talk about
Mhm.
that. But Adriana wants to know, what's your opinion for an officiant for people who aren't religious or don't practice religion but still want a very heartfelt, special ceremony?
So that can easily be done. There are legal requirements. There's some statements that have to be made to make the marriage legal. So it doesn't have the ceremony itself doesn't have to be religious, in tone and tenor. There's ways around it, that there can be a couple of very tiny, low level kind of religious tones to it, uh, because that's required by law. And so you have to do that. But there's ways around making a ceremony that it doesn't necessarily have to be, um, all about religion. It certainly can be very heartfelt and very special.
And to answer Adriana's question too, I think that's why, you know, I would say back 10 years ago, maybe even 7 or 8, we didn't have an officiant in our show. The uh, officiants have become popular fairly recently.
Hmm.
And it's because I think a lot of Canadians are more secular. They may be soulful people, faithful people, but not necessarily following, um, a religion. So
Correct.
they want to have something that does, show their faithfulness in whatever that might be,
Hmm.
and be heartfelt without a lot of religion based scripture in their ceremony. So you get married at
Exactly.
a good time, Adriana. There's a lot of officiants who can help you out.
Yeah.
Tiffany is asking, is pre-marital counseling a requirement for some or all officiants?
Some do require it, but it's it depends on the officiant. So you'd have to really, um, if that's an issue for you or something that you want or don't want,
Right.
then you would really have to check with each particular officiant,
But
really.
it's not a mandatory. I think in some religions, the Catholic religion makes you take marriage prep, but I don't think
Right.
all officiants make you go through premarital counseling. Greg, someone like you,
Correct.
you offer it if a couple wants it, I take it?
Yeah, if they need some help, certainly very open to it. I don't say that people have to, you don't have to come to 5 classes before the wedding ceremony. I
Right.
don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, Others do. There are some officiants that do, and it just depends on their affiliation, whom they're affiliated with, and what that um, religious organization's rules are.
Requires. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to ask you a question because I think this is an important one. When we talk about the official papers, the legality, what does an officiant take care of on behalf of a couple, and how long in advance does, like, what time frame, if a couple was saying to you, I'm getting married in a month, can you get this done in a month? Is there a window that you need to take care of the legal matters on behalf of a couple?
Oh, yeah. With respect to that, the couple has to go and get a marriage license. So once they obtain the marriage license, it's good for 90 days. So depending on when their wedding ceremony is, I mean, truthfully, a couple could get their marriage license one morning and be married that afternoon.
Do they process marriage license that quickly though? Or is
Yeah.
that yeah, they do. Okay.
Yeah, they can. I mean, it depends. What with COVID now, the way they're doing it, many places are having the couple fill out all the information online. They send it back in. Then the office looks at it, processes the information, contacts the couple, and one of the two have to come in to a face-to-face meeting briefly. It's like 5 minutes.
Okay.
And you is what I've been told. I haven't been through it, but what I've been told, anyways, it's a very brief little encounter. And they have you basically look at the information they've printed off, sort of on a draft marriage license, and you verify that all the information is correct. And once you verify it, you have to sign. They print off the marriage license, and you're leaving.
Okay.
It's pretty quick.
Okay.
So as long as you have that marriage license, any officiant can then marry you. It just depends on what the officiant's availability is.
Okay. Well, we're already at the end of